This is the 90 Degree Show brought to you by the Marching Podcast. And now here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 90 Degree Show. I'm your host Joe Beard and happy to be of service for you. We appreciate all those listening through iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our website, our blog, or wherever you are on the interwebs. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. We welcome you back to the 90 Degree Show, and this is a special year because things are going to be a little bit different. But some things were going to be the same, and we're going to take some things back old school style. When we got our equipment to do our own shows and created TMP Studios, we've been editing and adding sounds and other things. But for the 90 Degree Show, we have not been consistently on the air at the same time like we were on Blog Talk Radio. This has added more work for us, of course, and trying to watch the videos, etc., etc. But I also miss giving folks the opportunity to call in and speak their minds and being consistently on at the same time where people can chime in and listen. We had some really good people call into the show, and we definitely miss that. Well, last month we got a call from the NBC Sports Network, and they said that they would love for us to do our show on their network. I was skeptical and was like, hey, is this a joke? Is this somebody playing around? But I actually went over there and met all the people, and I have to say they really want us to succeed and be a part of this. They are really intrigued with our network and with our programming, and they would like to see if one of our programs is on a national stage, how it would work. So we sat down and we agreed with them on some things to get things going. And we're really excited to bring you the 90 Degree Show over 2 FM bands and 1 AM band out here in Southern California. So it's 106.5 out here and 102.3 and 1050 AM. They're also going to broadcast a video to Facebook Live and YouTube Live and Ustream. So I definitely need to make sure I'm hitting the gym and I'm getting my hair cut, you know what I'm saying, so y'all be seeing me and whatnot, and I want to make sure I look good for the podcast. So then I'm also excited because we'll then be able, again, to take in calls. There'll be 3 phone lines that we'll be able to use from and have you guys call in and be on the air and be over the national airwaves, if you will, talking about our craft like we did back in the day. So we're excited about this opportunity. We need to raise some money for this project. You can go on our website and hit the donate button to send your support. We have a Kickstarter page, but for some reason the band heads is not really feeling that. And it might be the format, it might be how it looks or whatever. But most folks have been donating to our website. And I'm sure that it's something with who I'm marketing to. But I wanted to put it out there to see if some folks outside of who we know, outside of the band heads, will look and to support what we're doing. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I feel good about the people that I know and love, that know and love the network, that actually have been pouring in and giving us support. Really feel honored to receive the money that we have, which is part of the title and the podcast, pooling our resources together. It's something that always comes up in our community a lot, that we don't have enough money or enough resources to invest in ourselves. But based on how this project is going here with the 90 Degree Show and the Marching Podcast, I can tell you that this definitely gives us hope for the future. We're really close to our goal, and you guys make sure that you go out and go to themarchingpodcast.com and donate to help out if you're listening. And also, always in building the craft. And this is a great opportunity to change the world. All right, so in this podcast, we finally get to come out this year and talk about some band stuff and kick off the season before the work with NBC. We're going to talk about some news that hits the band world over the summer and some stuff that happened at the beginning of the year. We'll also get into Crankfest, which was a couple of weekends ago now, and we get into the conversation about programs and if the Crankfest is good for our bands, all right? We welcome back our wonderful panelists for another great year, the great Christy Walker, the great Bridget Bell, and the magnanimous Rashad Waters. And we'll get into that, of course, later on in the show. So we hope you enjoy the podcast. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog the number 4.themarchingpodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening. We welcome you to the 90 Degree Show. We are back after a lot of time off, but we understand we are late, but our finish will definitely be strong. First, let me say hello to our outstanding panel of experts. First, we have two folks working on their PhDs right now. So we're about to have a couple doctors in the house. In no special order, of course. The one and only Christy Walker, a.k.a. Rosa Parks. How you doing in this podcast, Christy?
You kill me with that, Rosa Parks. I'm good.
That's outstanding. And another great panelist who is the great band director that pulls attention to be a judge in one event and becomes Miles' best critic in another podcast. The one and only Bridget Bell. How are you doing in this podcast, Bridget?
I'm doing wonderful. Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing?
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And last but not least, the one and only, the magnanimous, the great owner and founder of outstanding block band music and publishing their 1,000 songs. The one and only Rashad Waters. What's going on in this podcast, sir?
What's happening? The Magnanimous was sold 2016, so be on the lookout for the new word for 2017.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Thank you very, very much for being on the show, and really appreciate your service. You guys are on the East Coast, so things are much, much later over there when we do this recording. So shout out to you guys for being outstanding soldiers for the craft. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog the number 4.themarchingpodcast.com. There was a lot of news that went on this summer. Trademarks. I know you guys have heard about the trademark issue.
Copyright.
Oh, yes, copyright. Basically, what's happening and what's going on is that some folks will be charging bands, or potentially it's out there, the threat is out there, but they're going to charge bands about $3,000 per show, and that's like not the bomb. There's actually another article about that with Blocks Us Up. You guys can check that out. Really good article by Ernest. We checked that out. We also had the CIAA and their halftime show going on. And again, my favorite, the band director video from Talladega. That was the head band director. I had to ask Chrissy, are you sure that was the head band director? And that was him going out telling he about to drop everybody else's song. So I'm scared. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to run through some of that stuff with you guys, but we definitely want to talk about the Crankfest, the good Christy Walker feelings about the copyright.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. You know, I'll just say, for one, I'm not for it. I'm not for these I'm not for companies trying to make money off of bands saying that, you know, that we're playing songs that, you know, we need to pay the artist.
So here's kind of the here's a little bit of what I got of the history of it. Originally, well, first of all, let's go with the first part of this. Predominantly white institutions have been paying copyright fees for music for a while. Most of them, when they go to shows, they already pay. HBCUs, we've kind of had an unspoken code, kind of we play. The artist is actually kind of honored that we're playing their music, so it hasn't been a big issue. However, the part of the story that I think some people may have missed is that Trisona actually met with the HBCU band directors maybe a year or two back to talk to them about this process of paying for music, but they kind of came to them as representatives for the band directors. Hey, this needs to kind of happen, but we're going to kind of represent you, but the story kind of switched later on as the money parts kind of started coming together. Trisona started to understand that this is kind of bigger than what we thought, especially for HBCUs. So it came more so as Trisona is kind of pushing. They're the ones who are mainly pushing the button on HBCUs paying rights for music. Now, understand that some HBCUs have been paying through their legal departments for some things. They have been paying for rights for music, but for paying for every particular song is it's a pocket pincher for HBCU bands, especially for the number of arrangements that we use that are custom arrangement, which for most of us is pretty much everything we're playing except for marches are custom arrangements. So it becomes a bit of a challenge there. What some directors have elected to do is pay for large showcases. For instance, those things that's going to be televised, highly broadcast, i.e. Honda Battle the Bands, where, people kind of gunning for you. Then they're going to actually be making sure they cover all the music that they're playing during those shows. Not sure what they're doing for home games is the other part of it. So it's kind of been in the air for a minute. Some people have kind of ignored it. Some people have been through it with their legal teams at their universities, have been kind of working through it with them. They kind of know their options. The other part of it is people were trying to figure out if Trisona was the only way they could pay for the rights, which they're not the only way. They were supposed to be kind of this mediator between the band directors and the people who have the rights, the original rights to the songs. But it's kind of, really kind of developed into something much larger. That's kind of a little bit of the background on it. Like I said, it's not new. It wasn't new to any of the directors when it kind of came out in the last, I want to say the Stern started probably about 6 months ago where everyone kind of knew about it.
Right.
But the directors have known, they've actually have had meetings with Trisona. And for my understanding, there's like a large marching band clinic workshop that kind of happens for the directors. And Trisona was there. Some of the HBCUs don't attend, but a number of them do. And so those who do attend that particular workshop received a lot of the information earlier, kind of knew, how this was going to kind of proceed forward. So it's interesting. It is a pocket pincher, as I said, for HBCU bands. But what I saw at Queen City is a lot of originality came out of this whole thing.
Okay. I
saw some original ideas. I saw some different things happening, which I'm actually kind of like, oh, I can kind of see the other side of it. I'm tired of seeing the same shows over and over again. And I thought we actually saw some good changes at Queen City as a result. And I don't know if it's as a result of the Trisona thing. That's my guess. But it could just be as a result of people just trying new things. So that's kind of my take on it right now.
Okay, that's actually really good. The name of the article on BlocksUsUp.com is The Music Business, Music Education, and the Middleman. Copyrights, Your Rights, Their Rights, and Trisona. A really good article, really good for a little bit more in-depth. Rashad, what do you think about the copyright situation?
It is a major issue, and there's several things as a part of that. Number one, there's a big misnomer because a lot of bands already pay what you call ASCAP fees, where there's an organization that collects certain fees for certain things. Mm-hmm. The issue is that there's a difference between what we call performance rights and arranging rights. So if you wrote a song and if I wanted to perform your song the way that it goes, I would need to pay you for that. Okay, and that's what bands paying ASCAP fees do. If they're playing whoever's song, they're paying Whitney Houston's latest song, then they need to pay the performance rights in order to do that. And the ASCAP fees that the university pays generally will take care of that. The problem is that there's also arranging rights as well. So again, Joe, if you've written a song and now I want to change your song, so I'm still going to make it, Joe's Pub. It's still the same song, but I have changed the format so my show choir can do it, or so my rock band can do it, or so my disco band can do it, or marching band, or whatever. Anytime that I am taking that and adjusting it, now that's something different, and I need to contact you in order to obtain the arranging rights as well. And this is something that there is not something in place currently that the university can just do. And so this is where Trey Songz has kind of come in order to allow themselves to be that middleman. The issue is that sometimes bands, particularly college bands, I was speaking to someone recently, are paying as much as $400 a song.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
where the issue is this. And I see what the problem is. The issue is that this has started with the core style band in mind, and I marched core style in high school, and so I know about that. The core style band, generally speaking, is going to play one show a year. So if I bought 4 songs for my band, and we pay a couple $100 for them, that might be a little expensive, but $1,600. But that's it. I'm paying $1,600, and maybe I'm paying for a couple songs we might play in the stands, and that's it. The difference, however, is that with the show style bands, instead of playing one show a year, many show style bands are going to do
Multiple
2, 3,
shows.
4, 5 shows a year.
Yep.
In addition to that, they're going to have multiple songs that they're playing in the stands. When I was at Hampton, we had 80 different songs in our book, and I know that there are bands that probably have about 100 songs in their book. 100 songs.
And 10 of those were on and talking out the side of your neck. Sorry.
She's got G-Ho coming up, Joe. Don't.
Oh!
So anyway, you're looking at $400 a pop for 100 songs, not to mention dance routines, which can have 4, 5, 6 songs in them.
Right.
It really starts to add up, and so that can become a really big issue for our band. Right.
Is it? I don't know the saying, the letter of the law or the spirit of the law. Like when these bands go out there and perform, they're pubbing the artist. So on one certain degree, I don't even see when they say, "Oh, well, you need to pay us money to play our songs." I do understand it if this was like a paper or we were in class and you had to cite your sources or something like that. But this is actually bringing more attention to the artist to me. And it's like,
Joe, it's the same way that it works on the radio. It's the royalties and the rights. So every time a song is played on the radio, money goes back to the artist, and that's how artists actually live. So that part of it, as a musician, I can kind of understand. Hey, if that's my song you guys are playing, and I can get paid because that's how I make my living, then I'm okay with that. The thing about it, here's the unspoken cueing system that within the African American community, it hasn't been. It's kind of an honor for an HBCU band to play your song, and we understand that.
Right.
We definitely understand that. But now we have a third party who's kind of involved in it, and they see the money-making potential of it, and so it's changed into something else. For instance, who was that? A&T's band who played somebody's show? Who was it?
Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars, and he was like, yes, that's exciting. And then at that, whatever you call that fest, that happened in New Orleans. They played Paul Morton's song or whoever, one of the Bishop songs, and he was excited about it. So that's kind of our cueing system, and we're okay with that. And it's worked for our community. But just like everything that else has happened historically, somebody else has gotten involved. They figured out the money potential of it, and it's become something different. Let's be honest about it. That's exactly what's happening. So you have an outside organization who's saying, wait a minute. Why aren't HBCUs paying for this, that, and the other? And they see the money part of it. So even as they presented themselves to the directors, they presented themselves to the directors as, hey, we're here to help you. But it's now they're more of the, sorry, I'm going to say this, they're more of the predator now because they're now like, no, y'all need to pay. Y'all need to pay to play, basically.
Yeah.
So it really has turned into something else. And I really appreciate Rashad's part of your analysis of it, because that really opened my eyes to a couple other things that I didn't realize, the performance right versus the arranging rights. And I think that's what one of the directors was kind of explaining to me, that they've always played as arranging rights, but the performance rights is something different. So I really appreciate that insight that you provided, Rashad.
What's the equation involved where someone says, hey, I actually made some money off of this band playing my song because so many people that went to this, fest, or so many people went to this halftime show actually went out and then downloaded my song or went out and like bought my album. You know what I'm saying? Because on the other side, I understand free advertising, where someone would say, hey, or like on the movie, I think Drumline 2, and they were all the fifth quarter. I was like, oh, Christy, she getting a check. Christy getting a check. You know what I'm saying? But where was all of these people trying to make sure Christy was eating? If the point is for making sure everyone is getting their just due, how much money are you making after the halftime show? Because
But they're making money both ways. So Joe, think of it this way also. Every time a song is played on the radio, at the end of the month or whatever their cycle is, they're going to get a check for how many times that song is played on the radio. It doesn't matter who played it. It doesn't matter. Yes, you're advertising my song, but you're also going to pay me because you're advertising. You need my song in order to make your show work. It's the same concept. After I listen to a song on the radio and I like it, I go download it. They're going to make money that way too. That's just how the business works. But they're making money several ways, off of downloads, and they're making money off of the actual promotion of the song, using their music for your show and benefit. So it kind of worked both ways. Even if bands are playing it, we're promoting them, but it's no difference than the radio station playing a song. It's kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, me personally, I don't have any issue at all with them wanting to collect money for the artist. That makes sense. My issue is that the fees are exorbitant. And also, the fees only last for a year.
Okay.
Wow.
Which means basically, so let's go back to what Christy was saying, talking outside your neck. All right. So every single year, apparently the band has to pay for that song. You can't.
It's like price gouging.
Okay, here's the fee, and that's it. But you always have to keep paying for it every single year.
Right. So that's what Chrissy just said, the gouging part. That's probably the part that kind of like scratches me a little bit, where it's like the money involved, and at the end of your show or at the end of the season, for instance, Alabama A&M is dropping like $6,000, $7,000. You know what I mean? And then if, like Rashad say, it's every year, that's to me where it's like, that's just kind of how I feel about it. Definitely we could go into more in depth, but at least folks are aware about it, and we got it out there. Real quick, the CIAA halftime, all NCAA football games have a 20-minute clock that goes, and it starts when the teams go into. I think some of the folks from the CIAA, and anyone correct me if they were proposing that the visiting band can come to the game, and you can play in the stands probably, but for halftime it would only be for that home band. So again, I'll start with you, Christy. Did you hear about the story, and what did you think about it?
Yes, I heard about it, and from my understanding, it was from athletic directors from the CIAA, or maybe somebody in the administration of the CIAA that brought about this rule and tried to enforce it. So, of course, shortening the length of time that bands can play during halftime, and then if you do the math, like by the time your band comes on the field, by the time that the announcer, even when the football teams are walking off the field, and the announcer, let's say it's homecoming, and the announcer is saying who the homecoming queen is and who won step show and all that stuff, and by the time your band gets on, it's like you have a 6-minute show. So apparently a bunch of the CIAA band directors got together and presented a united front against these rules. And I think as a result, a combination of the band director saying something and then it getting out to the public and social media talking about it,
right, they
kind of relaxed those rules, which I thought was some BS. Because I mean, I feel like they're always trying to, administration, athletics, administration and HBCUs are always trying to pinch more and more time off of the halftime show, but they get amnesia because they get selective amnesia because they forget that we are the ones that put the butts in the seats. And, you know, they get that selective amnesia, and that's what really ticked me off. I'm like, do you forget? You gonna bite the hand that feeds you? You know what I'm saying?
But they have other hands that are feeding them too, and that's what it really is about, Christy. A lot of it now is about they're selling spots, advertisement spots. So, for example, the same thing happened when Morgan they played a local college, Towson University here, and they couldn't perform at halftime. Everybody was upset. We knew it was kind of happening beforehand, whatever. But in a lot of cases, even at our lovely HBCUs, they're trying to pay for, they got new school boards, they're paying for this, and what they're realizing is they get partners, they get business partners, they give them a commercial spot, it's gonna bring some revenue and some money into the school. So it's commercial, they're commercializing the spot. So that's kind of what's happening. So think about, even if you've ever been to an NFL game, the whole halftime is different spots, different promotions, whatever. That's money, that's revenue that they're getting. And during those times, the difference is, for us, HBCU has a culture where the bands are the most important part of halftime. At PWIs, that's not necessarily the case. Everybody's going to the hot dog stand, getting a hot dog. But people come for halftime shows, so then our schools have to find other ways to get that revenue in. I know it's happening at Morgan State basketball games already. The Morgan State basketball game, they're already sharing those spots.
Delicate balance. It's a delicate balance. It's a delicate balance that the athletic directors and the athletic administration have to cross. And I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Bridget. I'm not disagreeing at all, because I do realize that it is revenue, but I do think at the same time some of the administration is underestimating what we bring to the HBCU experience.
Absolutely.
And so I just need them to be cognizant of that. I need them to not get that selective amnesia.
They need to know the culture of their climate. Their climate isn't the same thing, right. You know. A school like North Carolina A&T is not going to be able to operate like maybe UNC would work for a game. Two different cultures, two different environments. And so I definitely get what you're saying, Christy. I agree.
Band directors, have you ever found yourselves in this situation? Showtime is quickly approaching. Your budget is quickly disappearing. Your music choices are narrowing. The equipment condition is wearing and your stress level is mounting. Stop what you're doing and contact Block Band Music and find out how we've got you. Check www.blockbandmusic.com, providing music, equipment, gear, and accessories to show style, core style, and traditional bands worldwide.
Hey, this your girl Casey Nesbitt, 2000 graduate of Jackson State University, class of 1996 of the Sonic Boom of the South, 2002 graduate of North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University, Aggie Pride, also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Fall 1997 Delta Pi Chapter, and you're listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Because I remember when we were all coming up, the halftime shows for the football games would be on BET, and they would show the whole halftime show. Well, now that's the same excuse. And maybe the excuse is not the best word to use, but that's what they use to say, oh, we stopped doing it because we were bringing in money because Clorox was giving us a commercial at that time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a delicate balance, but it's starting to feel like black folks ain't got money, so let's go ahead and turn up the heat a little bit on certain things. And that's what I feel like deep down.
Is that not the truth?
It is.
I hate to say it. But it's the truth.
So at least we could bond together and start building our own revenue, because these are the things that are important to us. But man, that's just it's just a hard pill to swallow. Like when like you just said, you bringing up these spots now, and it seemed like everybody's doing it. It seemed like whatever the culture is or whatever's important, throw some money around it, and then next thing you know, it starts to die down. Rashad, what
Well, I really wish our alumni would. I mean, and this is wishful thinking, and we all go through this at HBCUs. Let's just be honest. I really wish our alumni, specifically our band alumni, and not well, I don't want to say specifically band alumni, but our alumni in general gave more to the colleges, because I feel like that will probably make a difference in, if we get some people that'll band together, pardon the pun, to get some money to maybe contribute, so we don't have these issues. So we make sure, so that they can make sure that the bands are being played and they're able to see halftime shows. I wish our alumni would contribute more.
Yes,
absolutely.
Make sure you stay active with your. Make sure you stay active with your alumni association. And I know Rashad had proposed like 100 for Hampton a while ago. I know the Sonic Boot, like we've started alumni association. Other bands are starting that. So definitely we need to start pooling our resources together. Oh, Rashad, what did you have to say about the halftime show, man?
So I'm gonna add a little bit more to that. So the root of that actually comes from the NCAA and not CIAA. The NCAA, I think, raised the penalty for your halftime going overtime, or your band going overtime. And so what the CIAA did is they reacted to that. In order to prevent that from happening, then they, in my opinion, made a knee-jerk reaction and did the whole thing with the band. So it started with the NCAA. The NCAA didn't say the other band can't perform, but that's how the CIAA reacted to it. I am in 100% agreement with Christy, however. And this is an issue that I've talked to you about, Joe, and I've talked to many people about, that our HBCUs often do not understand the value that they have in the marching band. Think about this. If any school that you want to go to, okay, lots of HBCUs have bachelor's degrees. Other schools have bachelor's degrees. They've got master's degrees. Other schools have that. They've got basketball teams. Other schools get that. They have football teams. Other schools have that. What is it that HBCUs have that nobody else has? There's a handful of things, but one of the most noticeable and prominent things is the show style band. Nobody else has that. Nobody else has. No one care how good your band is. Nobody else has the show style band experience, and it is one of the major draws that sends people to HBCUs. Now, I know that, let's go to A&T since we discussed A&T. I know A&T is not in the CIAA, but they are a perfect example. If I'm not mistaken, North Carolina A&T is the largest HBCU. Okay?
Yeah, that's correct.
Now,
Wasn't that Christy? Yes, that is correct.
Right.
Just to clarify.
A lot of that has to do with the band. Let's think about this for a second. North Carolina has more black schools than any other state. So how is it that North Carolina A&T is the largest HBCU, and yet they have far more competition than any other school? Well, one of the major things is that when you go to the game, you're gonna have an overall experience. You're not gonna just watch the team. The band is gonna be a major part of what's happening there. They're going to influence the entire environment. I remember the last A&T game that I went to. I was watching the band march in. I was sitting near the band, and everybody was watching the band march in. And all of a sudden, I heard a whole bunch of people yelling, "Ah!" And I was like, "What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, the team scored." Like, "Oh, the team, they're still out there?" Because everybody around me was watching the band, And that's the same type of thing that happens. Even kids that are not in the band, one of the major reasons they go to North Carolina A&T is because if they happen to go to a football game or any other thing where the band is there, they feel that energy that's there. So the band plays a major portion of people wanting to go to that school, and that's the case with every HBCU. Now, again, North Carolina A&T is the largest HBCU, but what would happen to the school, to the size of the school, if the band went away for 4 years. Like if they just, I'm not talking about like suspending the band like fam. Let's just say they just, you know what, we're just not going to have a band. We can't expand. We can't afford it. After 4 years, what would be the matriculation at A&T? Or even better question, how many people would continue to go to the football games if A&T's band wasn't there? I guarantee you that it would go down to maybe nearly a half, probably, if not less.
I mean,
so
there's
a major thing. So you can't just ban. You can't just get rid of these. Look, to pun again, you can't just ban these bands, from because it has such a significant input on our culture and our attendance at these games.
And really, to be honest, it's really no different when folks want to go to Alabama or when folks want to go to LSU or they want to go to these like Stanford or something because they see the football team on TV so much, or you see the basketball team on the Final Four. Folks want to go to Duke.
Go Heels.
Right.
Go Heels.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I definitely think, like you said, when your name is out there, it is a marketing, or it is an ambassador of your school, whether it's your sports, whether it's your band, and HBCUs definitely have that uniqueness with their band. We get like programs like Miles or other programs like even Talladega. They're putting the band out there to help with the school, and I would like to see that more. But I guess to tie into the previous, even the previous conversation, I guess it's really up to us to pool our resources together and make sure that we're being
they don't
current.
have a choice.
Right.
They don't have no.
They don't. Another thing that made me think about is like when I think someone said A&T home. Oh yeah, Rashad talked about Jiho. Man, think about all the folks that are spending money at like these other businesses just to go to homecoming. You know what I'm saying? How many of these folks are, active with their alumni association, but then they come back and spend hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, at the Red Roof Inn or at the Marriott. You're going to go get something to eat, all of that stuff. Definitely, I guess, pooling our resources together might be the theme, on this podcast, but definitely something we need to make folks aware of.
So if I could venture one more point.
Go ahead, yeah.
Sorry about that. One other thing I want to say is it is the administration of the university, but also, like Christy said, a lot of times it's the athletic directors, and I get it because a lot of times they don't understand what the band is doing because a lot of times during halftime they're not anywhere near the band. I had a good buddy of mine that went to A&T, and so he played his freshman year with A&T's football team, and really didn't really have a clue of how good the band was. Because the football team goes in they go inside for the halftime show. They think that everybody is there to see them. And yes, we are there to see a football game, but they don't necessarily understand how much that the band is bringing to the table. When these guys become athletic directors, it's easy for them to make these decisions because they're probably basing their things off of a lot of what they see on TV, or with the larger PWIs, and may not even understand what's happening right there in their own backyard with the band.
I mostly agree with that. I mostly agree with a lot of that. Rashard, the other part of it is that a lot of the ADs start looking at the financial liabilities that bands are, as well as the presidents and boards of trustees or whoever of the university. So as much as we are an asset in promoting the school bands, HBCU bands are a major financial liability, is what people have to realize. So when you are taking up more revenue, using more revenue than you're bringing in, then you in essence, you're a liability. So let's look at scholarship budgets. So as much as you're bringing people to the game, when you have a college like Bethune-Cookman College, as small as that school is, when a band has a $1 million scholarship budget, you are a liability. That means that's money that the university is not making on students. Universities make money based upon their student population. So you think about that. You think about the scholarship. You think about travel, food, all the other things staffing that comes with running a band. Really, we are an asset in promoting the university, but we're not a financial asset at all. Bands are not financial assets. They are liabilities.
And I think
major liabilities.
That's when you have to have an organization to come in to really do the statistical research.
Right.
I definitely understand what you're saying, because when you balance the budget, the bands are expensive. But on the flip side of that, let's look at the fact that Bethune-Cookman's band has been to the Honda Battle of Bands every year. Now
that money doesn't mean that money isn't nothing. That little money that's chump change.
Yes. That's Reeves and Balboa.
They have been to the Honda Battle Bands every single year. How many people know about that university that wouldn't have a clue about that university? I mean, think about it. How many people know about Bethune-Cookman's football team? If you just poll, like, if you went through and said, in the nation, how many people know about this particular football team? Versus if you said, how many people know about this particular band program? Well, the fact that they have, performed on MTV, the fact that they have had multiple televised performances, the fact that they've attended the Honda Battle of Bands multiple years, these are things that, unless you have a group that's actually doing the research, bring in money to the university, but there's no one that's saying, hey, this is how much the band has generated. Even Talladega College. Talladega has been to the Honda, has been to the Queen City Battle of Bands. But see, before... I know a little bit about black college bands, but before Talladega showed up to Queen City Battle Bands, I can't say I've ever even heard of them before. But now, how many students have actually gone to that university after having seen that school, and they don't even have a football team.
But honestly, can I tell you? Even with that, look at the crowd that if we mention Honda Battle Bands, we're talking about mainly a band crowd. You have some few others who attended, but that's a band head event. So that's really not a strong promotion still for the school because that's band, which means kids are going into the band program scholarship, once again, liability. So I understand your point as a band person, as a band head, as a director, I understand it, but we have to understand the mindset and why our band program funding is getting cut and the things that are happening at universities. We have to understand the mindset of those who are not band heads like we are. What they see is the liability part. When I look at the financial books, I don't see, oh, you came here because of this. There's no qualitative poll to tell me why you came to the school, so I don't care. What I see is, oh, I spent $15,000 on one game for buses. That's a real fact.
Yeah.
I had to feed them jokers. To feed them all day for one game, you're looking at about close to $3,000 to feed a band for one. I'm not talking about overnight expenses for one event. So for one game, you mean to tell me you can spend between $13,000 to $15,000 on that's just an average mediocre sized band for one game? That's a lot of money. And add that, multiply that by an entire season. That's what they're seeing. Then you're on top of that, you're looking at staff salaries. On top of that, you're looking at scholarships. On top of that, you're looking at equipment. And that's not even getting into the legal stuff that people are causing, which are causing even more strenuous activities on universities. So that takes us to a whole nother level where our programs are. Talladega is great what they're doing. They're not going to maintain that. They don't have the student population to support that kind of a program.
Well,
they're going to do exactly what some of the other schools did. Shaw, some of the others. Remember, they bust out of the seam all of a sudden. Boom, big band. And guess what? Where are they now? They're done.
Right.
Because they can't maintain that. They can't maintain it. You have to build gradually.
You're making good points here. And a lot of that plays into exactly what I'm talking about, is the fact that they do see it as a liability as opposed to actually utilizing what they have. I think about when football first became the national sport. When football first came out, football is expensive. You're building them stadiums. You're doing this. You have to have pads. You have to all these type of things, medical things. But what somebody decided was that, you know what, we can make some money off of this. And so
we're gonna make money by integrating, letting the black boys play.
Started making a PR campaign in order to make football, particularly college football, American sport. And this is what you do. Think about the fact that there's so many sports at universities. But what is the sport that almost everybody goes to? They go to the football game. Somebody was genius enough to figure out that some money can be made for the university and we can market products. Versus you look at our bands, you can sell products, you can sell T-shirts and all kinds of stuff for the bands. But no school that I know of, almost no school, does any type of marketing or any type of promotions in order to make money off their band when it comes to merchandise or anything. This is something that the universities have to think about what they have and actually take that liability and turn it into an asset.
When I was at Smith, I know the great Duncan C. Gray, we would go all around Charlotte.
You know what?
And you know what I'm saying, we was like popping at the mall. We was popping at all these little, you know, meetings.
You was at the
stuff.
Walmart. Y'all playing at the Walmart.
I think so.
Oh,
Well,
no,
not
that's
Walmart.
Alcorn.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alcorn.
But definitely,
Yeah, exactly.
at least someone's trying to at least apply some of that to get themselves out there, to get these national attention. But I think it really comes down to analytics, because in sports, what they were saying was that player contracts were getting too expensive, but you didn't really know how valuable that player was. So, like in baseball, for instance, they started implementing more analytics like WAR and WOBA and PER, and to say, oh, this player is worth this much because he gives us these numbers. If maybe someone came in with a lot of the HBCUs and applied analytics to say, this is the percentage of people that came to this game, this is how much money we made. Or like when Bridget just said, we don't really know about the survey, maybe we find out specifically, oh, what was the first thing that brought you to the school? Or what was the first thing that you thought about? So then at least we have some type of numbers, or like we have something to apply to say that this is the potential money that we can make. I think it's just a little bit more time, or just something to be applied to the subject, because everyone's making some good points, but definitely coming up with numbers, because that's what we do here on the podcast or any other radio shows. Like, what was the percentage of people that listen? How long did they listen? Did they turn it off and turn it on? Like, what was the most part? So definitely coming up with some of those statistics will help us out. So let's get into the Crank Fest. We're talking about Talladega's director. That would probably bleed into this. And basically, I definitely want to hear what you guys feel as we like round out the end of the podcast. There were 4 bands there. It was Alcorn, Sounds of Dynamite, Talladega, Marching Tornadoes, what was the Human Jukebox, Southern University, and Jackson State Sonic Boom of the South. I wanted to ask you guys some questions about I have 4 questions. I'm just going to ask you guys about the event. Anything else, go ahead and feel the need to go ahead and say it. But the format, I had talked about Rashad about this. The format was basically 4 bands, and then they just went one after another. And I guess that would consider to be round 1 or whatever. And then they went back and played again. I guess it went on for a couple hours. I saw a lot of the tape. I saw Showtime, HBCU bands. So, Chrissy, I'll start with you. What was your impression over the overall event? What was your impression of Crank Fest 2017?
Okay, well, I want to start even before the actual event on Sunday. I want to talk about the promos leading up to the event.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The foolery.
So, yeah, well, here's the thing. So, I mean, I grew up in a time, 80s and 90s, following bands in the 80s and 90s, and I know that these band directors talk trash to each other. And, I mean, even after I marched, my 4 years of marching, and I, would talk to my director, the late Johnny Hodge, about, just bands through the years. He would talk about all the time, like, him and so would have words, and they'd exchange words, but then a lot of them were like frat brothers. So after the game was over, after the battle was over, they'd be like kicking and having a drink. So I don't mind the trash talk between band directors, because I feel like it gets the blood flowing between the band heads, like it gets us excited. I am a personal fan of aggressive bands. I've been a Southern fan for a while. I'm not afraid to admit it. And one of the big reasons why I like them is because I like aggressive bands that kind of go for blood and are just aggressive and have like a dark sound. With that said, I feel like I forgot who did the first promo. It might have been Southern, and they said they talked a little trash. They created YouTube clips Facebook Lives on their individual pages. And I thought that it was good at first, but then the promos started to go a little to the left. Well, way to the left. When Miguel Bonds from Talladega did a promo of fans, like he dressed up basically as an Islamic terrorist and was, talking trash and acting like, there had been some prisoners captured, and it was just, I felt like that promo was in poor taste. And it's okay to talk trash. It's okay to have, like, your drum majors or some of your band members be in those promos talking trash, but I feel like as a director, and more importantly, as a college administrator, I feel like you can't do that.
Or an adult. Or an adult.
Yeah, or an adult. Yeah. I just, speaking as somebody who has worked as a college administrator, like, first of all, if I was even to attempt something like that, I'd be afraid to lose my job. I mean, I don't know how that man kept his job. I don't know, but it's whatever. So that's my issue. I don't mind trash talk. I mean, I know of bands that are like, for example, one band will send another band like a sympathy card and say, we can go get you this week. We sorry for your losses. That's what they used to do back in the day. But I just thought that was team too much. That was team too much. So that's what I want to say about actually even before the event, and I want to get y'all's opinion on that too.
I had never seen anything like that before. That was the thing. Like, I just didn't. I don't know. I just think that, like, once you got to a certain age, or once you got to a certain
age,
like, you just wouldn't do that. Now, for us, when we were in school, we tried to do everything ignorant as possible. Like, because we were kids. But, of course, like, our directors were there to be like, especially Dr. Magruder. He was like, all right, just calm down, handle your business. You know what I'm saying? So, stuff like that, it trips me out. But I definitely feel now there's a little bit more of an age. You guys remember Miles and Talladega some years back was going off the chain at each other, and, like, it was a whole bunch of high school kids around. And Brother Snipes got on the show. Willie Snipes, shout out to you. He got on the show and apologized. So that felt like, to me, I was like, oh, okay, he's actually saying, he's acknowledging it, and he actually said, saying, my bad, I need to step off of it. But I definitely feel like that's out there. And I also think that Talladega is doing it in part to rile everybody up. Because I feel like Talladega, like, I ain't gonna lie, man, they exciting, but we definitely got a lot more to talk about in the band world when Talladega is acting a fool. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of torn sometimes, Bridget, what you think?
I have two comments. Here's the first one. As far as the directors, open your Bibles with me to 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, understood as a child, thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. That's all I'm going to say.
I knew that verse was coming. I knew it.
The prophetess has spoken. I'm trying to tell you. That's my first comment.
Oh, that's right. Go ahead.
Here's my second comment. I am currently working on my EDD, and I have yet to find a musical term called crank. It's not there. Go with me. I charge you to. Find it in a musical dictionary for me. Please do. An encyclopedia or something.
That's what we add.
There is no such word as crank.
That's what
Let me help you with that. So if you expected anything musical from the event, is what it was, then there's no analysis necessary because you got exactly what it was. I would never take my band to anything named crank anything. Because you're defying everything that I'm trying to teach you about musicality. Everything I'm trying to teach you about music and musicality is against it. You want to call it the Dynamics Fest? Okay. I may be able to hang with you. Anything but that. I hate the word crank. I hate it. I despise that word.
Because
when you use the word, what about it signifies anything musical?
What about
it?
What about crankage? What about, like,
CRANK? You can't even start a musical term with me and use anything that starts with CRANK You can't start a musical term and talk to me and have a respectful conversation. And time you say the word crank for me, I lose every bit of respect I have for you.
Oh, don't
My
say that.
band was cranking. I'm shutting you down because I know you're ignorant.
But
Wow.
some of that ignorance is a little bit of that flair. And like you said, it's an age thing, it's a maturity thing, but definitely you know that it makes the students excited. You know what I'm saying?
Garbage. I need the students to learn something. I need you to let them know that while they're sitting there trying to use pressure to blow that instrument, that they need to build their embouchure. While they're taking a big old breath to blow one loud whole note. That's garbage. And they call that cranking. No, you're defying everything that people are trying to do to build skills in music students. Everything that we're trying to teach, embouchure, control, balance, support, every musical turn, timbre, everything. It's all defied. When you say crank, it all becomes null and void. You kill it. You kill everything about it.
Rashad, what you think?
The end.
So in other words, you mad, huh?
I'm big time mad because when you name the event as crank, CRANK, and that's why you got the foolishness that the directors did.
Ooh.
Nothing musical was about their trash. It was nothing musical about their trash talking. They can't even talk musicality. Yes, I'm putting you on blast because you're starting with crank, and because you would be silly enough to take your band to an event that's called crank, and you're a collegiate level band that's supposed to be setting the example for what musicality should be. You set us back about 50 years with that whole event. Yes, I'm big time mad.
So Rashad, what you think, man?
I can't show my students that foolishness. I can't show it to them because you sound like middle schoolers. All right, go ahead, talk to Rashad because I'm done with it.
Rashad, what you think, man?
Oh, I just got my life. I just got all of my life.
Y'all got me in here sweating. Tell me something. I'm sitting here coming out of clothes. Y'all done made me bad.
I'm sweating
Just
too.
stick me into some hot flashes or something.
I'm saying, boy. Oh boy. I don't know if my computer can handle even me saying a word now.
Ooh, that was
Rashad,
warm right there.
what you think, man? Hi, everyone. This is Joe Beard from the Marching Podcast. Is your school, club, or organization looking for high-quality decorated apparel to outfit your students, staff, club, or team? Tired of the same old boring white t-shirt? Are you in charge of the upcoming fundraiser or special event, but don't really have time to troll the internet for ideas or compare products? SAY can help with design and product selection. We can even assist and help with ideas on conducting an effective fundraising program. SAY can help you save time and get your message heard. SAY Marketing and Promotions.
Give your brand a voice.
Hello, this is Diamond Frazier. I'm a member of the Tennessee State University Marching Band. I'm a part of the clarinet section. And I also was a 2016 scholarship recipient from the Marching Podcast. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
I didn't see the one that apparently everybody was talking about. Tricky, like when you send somebody a text message that they didn't get. Say, well, did you get my text message? Well, they may have gotten the last one, but they don't know if they got the one that you just sent. I don't know. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I didn't see the one that everybody apparently saw, because when Christy was explaining it about the Al-Qaeda version, I was like, what?
Yeah.
The one that I saw had all the band directors standing at attention. I mean, all the drum majors standing at attention. I think it was like 6 of them for like 2 or 3 minutes before the band director walked in. This was the Talladega one. And I just kind of felt like people that went to FAMU, particularly band directors at FAMU, were probably just peeing on themselves because they were just so really disgusted as far as what they saw, just with the drum majors just standing at attention. I'm no hater of Talladega at all, but I just call it as I see it. And one of the main points I've always looked at with Talladega is just they're not tight like they should be. It seems like their focus is in the wrong place sometimes. It's like you have to build a tight, well-developed, organized, uniform band first, and then build from there. And when I watch Talladega, it's easy to see that. When I was looking at the drum majors, you know, I'm seeing some of them looking off to the side. There were 6 of them. One of them didn't have his whistle in his mouth. Some of them have the whistle straight ahead. Some of them have the whistle off to the side of the mouth. and it looked very disorganized. It looked like just a bunch of guys standing around and not, the leaders of the band. And again, I really point out FAMU there because I guarantee you, if you seen drum majors from FAMU or many of our bands that have multiple drum majors, you would have seen a lot of uniformity. In addition, what took away from it is that after the band director was done saying what he had needed to say or was going to say, that should have been it. But when the drum major started chiming in with other things that they felt that they needed to say, to me, it did take away from the overall impact of the whole thing. Plus, them just standing around while we're just waiting for like 2 or 3 minutes wasn't really effective as well. And it gave you the opportunity to really look at that and say, hey, these guys are not tight. Versus, hey, let's just start the video like right when the band director's walking in. That would have been a lot better. I did see one that Southern did, and they were talking about Jackson. I thought it was pretty hilarious because all 4 of them were like imitating like different things that the Jackson State drum majors would do. I just thought that was pretty funny. But I mean, personally, I like the fact that they do that versus one guy that marches and then he sits down. So, as far as the spirit of doing those, I really wish that was something that was kind of left to like the band members per se, or maybe it can come from the band department, but let the band members be the ones that are doing it as opposed to the band directors. I think you could potentially send a wrong message when you have the band directors up there condoning things like that. I think you can potentially start to cause, particularly people who have nothing to do with your band, to get involved in aggression against people who have nothing to do with the other band at all. I think you just are kind of pushing some things along and causing potential problems that you don't want to be. What I'm trying to say is that you could cause some potential fight, and that's not what you want to have happen. I think about, what was it, last year with Norfolk State and North Carolina A&T, where with A&T, I don't think it was even anybody that was in the band, but it was somebody going up against Norfolk State. And there could have been a really bad situation. I definitely give props to particularly Cold Steel for maintaining their discipline and not allowing anything to get out of control there. But that could have really been bad. And we've seen fights in bands before, and there's no need to do anything that's going to push that. Knowing people in A&T's band for years and years and years, A&T and Hampton, we had a nice rivalry, but I know that Dr. Hodge said a lot of things about Hampton in order to get A&T's band riled up. But that was never something that was said to us at Hampton. And I think that if that was something that was said to us, it would have been a whole different ballgame. So I think it's cool to get your band riled up and, talk your junk. But I think that coming from the band director's perspective, I think they are kind of like what you said, Joe. They should be the foil to what the students are doing, and they should be the ones that, in public, seem to be the ones that are calm and keeping everybody under control. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to just say the only one that I was really impressed with was Jackson State out of the 4. I mean, I'm sure that, the other bands, they did have their highlights or whatever, but I feel like overall it was Jackson State only because, I feel like Jackson State was not playing out of the context of their horn, playing just to crank. I know the event's called Crank Fest, but there's got to be some musicality in it. And I felt like out of the 4 bands that were there, Jackson State was definitely the most musical. Yeah. Now, were they straight blasting at people? Not so much, but to me, that's not necessarily, it's not who plays the loudest for me. It's like who plays the best. And I felt like Jackson was the better one out of the 4.
You love that loud now. You love the ignorance, as you like to say.
Oh yes, I love ignorance, but see, I don't love ignorance when you just playing, just cranking, and no musicality in it. Like, I love an aggressive band, and I'll tell anybody I like aggressive bands with, that's what makes us us. But Yeah, I mean, I don't have me out here like, people thinking that I just, want some, crank and blowing all out, no musicality, no context, no color, no dynamics. No, that's
but Chrissy,
not me.
that's what the word suggests. That's exactly what the word suggests, which is why I'm not a fan of Crankfest. What component of the word crank even suggests any form of musicality? I'm just saying we're trying to use music. We're trying to justify musicality for something called crank. Crank is something that a construction worker does with something that makes noise. That's noise. As a musician, absolutely. I've always had a big problem with the word crank. There's nothing about it that suggests musicality. So what happens is you get people playing uncharacteristically, yes. There's nothing that's supposed to happen with music actually happens with ensembles because they're busy trying to, quote, crank. So you got people blowing their brains out, to killing embouchures, and not developing anything with the students, and we're celebrating it. I can't celebrate it. I can't celebrate that. So, as a band director, as a musician, I can't celebrate anything called crank. I think it's the most ridiculous thing in the world.
I like the event. I like that they were able to go back and forth between the four bands like that. I think there were some opportunities missed. I still kind of like the way that some of the MEAC bands do things with their battle of the bands with Southern versus Grambling. I think they're like rounds where you have to, like, okay, here everybody's gonna play a slow song. All right, everybody play a fast song. Everybody do. Let's bring out your dancers. Like, I kind of like that because it forces you to be a little bit more creative, I think, versus, all right, let's just everybody go. I mean, that's kind of how fifth quarters go. So I guess Crankfest was really more like a fifth quarter with four bands, where you just go, and whoever plays whatever is just whatever gets played. I really wish I think the band directors missed some opportunities to really just talk to us about the song that they're going to play, as opposed to dissing each other. I mean, that was all in fun, but I really just would have liked to know what song they were playing. You know?
Right. Like tell us something, like be specific.
Alcorn State band director, took the opportunity to promote his band a little bit. He said, we're going to put some 16 notes on it. I thought that was funny. But I like that they did play something there. As far as which band the other thing as far as the overall event was concerned, it was orderly overall, except for, and I guess this was spurred on by the promos, Talladega got to the end of one of their songs, and it was ending on a soft note, and before they got the chance to end it, Southern started playing. And, if you've ever been in the classroom, there are some times where, like, your students will do something, and it's like, you really want to be mad at them for doing it, but it's actually pretty funny. And that's kind of how I felt about that, because what happened was Southern cut off Dega, and then Southern was just playing loud, and all of a sudden Dega started playing again, and so they were both going back and forth at it, while Alcorn and Jackson State just sat there. And it's like, this is wrong. But it sure is funny. I do like the fact that the announcer was able to get back control again, and he gave the words that he said were very good. It's like, you know what? Sometimes the things that you plan just don't go as planned. But I definitely want to salute Alcorn State and Jackson State for not playing. And I think that him saying those things really kind of got everything back on board again.
Who are you impressed with?
Okay, so there's two different ways to answer that. First of all, I'll start by talking about Alcorn State, because I've seen Alcorn State come up recently, like just a couple of years ago. Joe, you were calling them the the Bizarro Jackson State?
Bizarro State, that's them.
And and I could see that they really weren't there as a band, but I was impressed by the fact that I felt like they were able to really hang with programs like Southern and Jackson. Like, okay, I was really impressed by the fact that Alcorn State was really able to hang with Southern and Jackson. And between those three bands, there wasn't a lot of difference. I also like the fact that, again, they put some 16 notes on it. And because to me, they were the only ones that played anything that was technically difficult to me. So I give them props for that. Christy, I listened to your comments. Well, I looked at your comments where you had mentioned Jackson State. You said they were the best. So I was watching the video, just trying to see where they were. But I kind of felt that Jackson State didn't have the balance, mainly just in their numbers. That it didn't seem like their trumpet section was able to balance what was happening in terms of the mellophones and the rest of the low brass section. The best band overall, I thought, was Southern. I kind of felt like Southern to me has always been the best of that style. When I mean that they are always able to come in with clear articulation and cut off all together, which in some way is able to hide some of the issues that they have. And so to me, I did feel that Southern was the best overall, but there wasn't a big difference between the top three bands. As far as Dega was concerned, I was really disappointed in their performance. I kind of felt like they didn't belong there, and I hate to say that. Again, I'm not a Dega hater, but there were just some opportunities. There were just some times, like, for example, they played Wild Thoughts by Rihanna, and it just ended on a low note, and it's just like, gosh, I just don't feel like you guys really were ready for this. Last thing, shout out again to Alcorn State with the true trombone soloists, who again were able to provide some variety from everything else that was happening with the other bands.
Well, I thought what you said about Southern was very true. It's like you can't try to out Southern, and if you try to out Southern, like nine times out of 10, it's just not going to be good for you. So
right.
You're right. The Southern, they are the best at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something, Christy, you say that. That's actually something that we actually heard in the band room on Southern Week. Like, they was like, we're not ready to try to be louder than them. Like, we already knew we weren't even about to try to do that, but we were like, we got to outplay them. So, of course, we polished up marches and polished up a lot of stuff so it sound good, because we knew that they were 9 times out of 10 going to be louder than us. We definitely had to make sure we turned the musicality on. And I definitely agree as far as Crankfest. This always, to me, seems like a Southern type of thing. Like last year was Dega and Southern. And it's like, all right,
that was trash.
Right. So it's like hard to do with that. But yeah, I just kind of miss I miss marches. And maybe that's because I came in the 90s in the boom. Like, we played a lot of marches, but I really miss marches, or actually something that, like you said, like y'all said, showing the musicality versus like these rap songs. And then they have like these long drum and tuba breaks, and everybody like jumping around, hugging each other like, dog, we loud, dog. Like, look at us. Like, that's starting to get on my nerves a little bit, actually. You know what I'm saying? All right, so I guess that's what everybody was impressed with. Now, I kind of know Bridget's answer with the next question. But what were you not impressed with, Christy, as far as the Crankfest goes?
I'll tell you who I was not impressed with was Talladega off the top. I mean, I felt like they sounded like a high school. Like, you're a 16-year-old, you're a junior in high school, and you just want to, like, crank on somebody, or you just want to blast as loud as you can on somebody, and you think that's going to get house. And I feel like for a college level program, I feel like they should have come with it a little better.
What do you think? You said you think you know what my answer is. What do you think my answer is going to be?
Well,
I'm just curious.
I was just kind of seeing if you had a little bit more. Yeah, but I'm just.
My answer. No, I have an answer. My answer is the level of musicianship that we're seeing from collegiate musicians. That's what I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed at all with the level of musicianship I'm seeing. Loud whole notes and breaths after every note doesn't impress me. And it's not good. It's not good musicianship. The arrangements, I think most of them are poor and they're basic at most. We're giving people a little bit to play, tuba breaks, a little bit to play. So I'm not impressed with the arrangements. I'm definitely not impressed with, there's a moment where Southern band director grabs the microphone and he says something like, Dega, and you sound horrible. That doesn't impress me. So our professionalism in the field is not impressing me either. I was listening to Rashad talking about the drum majors. So there's several things that I'm hearing that I'm kind of surprised about a little bit. So I'm wondering how many drum majors are actual musicians, or are they people just kind of audition to be a drum major? That makes a huge difference in the program. And that's not trying to throw shade, but what I found out is, okay, so I'm gonna call it out. So when I was hired here in Maryland to work, the guy who hired me was a former drum major at Hampton. And so I was all excited, like, yeah, I'll work with you. He's like, yeah, but, I was drum major, blah, 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 but I couldn't read music. And I just stopped. I'm like, how are you drum major? You can read music. How are you drum major and you can't read music? And so I just kind of was like, And so the more I look at that, and there's a clear difference when you see drum majors who are musicians versus those who are just kind of in front of the band juking. I'm gonna call it juking. I dare say, if I had to call it, and I could be wrong, I would love for somebody in one of the podcasts to call and tell me if I'm right or wrong. J5, I guarantee you, most of them are musicians. They actually are conducting. When I look at other drum majors like Dega, they're not in front of that band at all. They're down there dancing. And the conductors they're the only ones doing any form of conducting or caring about the music. So when you're busy doing 8 counts like you're a dancer, to me, you're probably not a musician. You was on the dance team or something and tried out for drum major. That makes a big difference in the quality of your program. So as Rashad was talking about the drum major whistle being in this place, they're not going to know that because they haven't really come through that training of thought as, here we go, there's some things about musicianship and discipline that goes hand in hand. So we saw a lot of that at Crankfest. I don't follow Alcorn's program much, so I really don't have don't have much to say on them. I follow a little bit of Jackson State, Southern. Southern has been doing Southern forever. They're the only band program that probably does the same thing over and over again and don't get nailed for it. Any other program that produces the same show style music every time probably will get nailed for it. But Southern they can get away with it for some reason. Somebody helped me figure that one out. So going back to the question, there's several things that don't impress me about it. Shout out to the promoters for making money, I guess.
Having an anniversary party, birthday party, or better yet, you're about to marry that special someone? Liquid FX Photography is the perfect choice to immortalize all your most special moments. With 10 years of dependable professional service that can deliver from the conventional to the best in cutting-edge technology and creativity. Come experience the uniqueness of Liquid FX Photography. We serve the entire upper Midwest and will travel further upon request. Come check us out at liquidfx.com. That's LIQUIDEFFEX.com. Or call us at 773-454-5556. That's 773-454-5556.
Hello, this is Manuel Powell, one of the 2015 Marching Podcast Scholarship recipients and 2016 Jackson State University Saxophone Section Leader. And you are now listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
Well, I have to tell you that as far as Alcorn is concerned, picture a Xerox machine. And you put a piece of paper in there, you're like, oh, I need so many copies. And then you push the button and then a whole bunch of copies come out. That would be Alcorn. And like
Howard's band. Howard band is the same way. Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, Jackson State, let me get over here. Let me put it in the machine. Oh, hey, look, there's Southern. Here, let me put it in the machine. No, I'm just playing. Well, love you.
Wow.
Love you, Alcorn.
Wow.
Love you, Alcorn, but, I wouldn't.
No, you don't.
Wow. Throw shade. But, what I'm saying? But Alcorn is a great program.
As far as who was I impressed with or not impressed with, first of all, Joe, I would say that I agree with you, man. We've had this conversation. The whole tuba break thing, man, like I feel like I'm an old fuddy duddy, like, back in the day, music was better. So for real, like, this whole tuba break thing, man, is just out of control. I'm so sick of it, man, with every song. And I go back to Blood on the Dance Floor from, I want to say 1993, Southern University, Blood on the Dance Floor. It was a great song that they played. And when the tuba break in the middle of that was just straight power all the way through. There's been so many songs that were great that didn't have that tuba break best in the middle. But now it's just a break, and we're just chilling. We're going to come back in with half notes. It's just it's sick. I want to just hear it. Let me just hear a poem from top to bottom. The other thing I wasn't impressed with, I just was not impressed with Talladega. I just did not feel like they were on the same level as the other bands. But I'm going to say why, not just, for those people out there, you always want to build you up and tell you what's going on. There is a difference between how the four bands played. And with Talladega, the difference is it's attack, release, it's attack, sustain, release. The reason I say Southern was the best is because they're the best at that. They always come in together.
First note. First note.
Yeah, but always, first note is always together, every single person. They're able to, once they hit a note, and they might have four baritone players, and those four baritone players might be out of tune from each other, but once they hit that note, whatever pitch that they're on, they're going to sustain that pitch in the same place. So once they don't go out of tune from each other anymore, and then they're going to cut off at the same time. So Talladega, on the other hand, they do not sustain very well at all. They attack together for the most part, but when they sustain, you can hear individual baritones and mellophones or what have you going out of tune as they're playing. And so that it really takes away from the overall sound of the band. Jackson Alcorn didn't have that issue as much, Alcorn being the third band who probably had that issue more than the other two, but Alcorn really had a problem with that. So that would be the thing Talladega, that you guys should tighten up on, is work on sustaining those pitches. I think if you work on that a little bit more, I think it'll help you to become a better band.
That's pretty good. As far as Talladega goes, shout out to Kellen Christensen. He's one of the bros. He's bros, Christy. He the bros. I know he works with the band, and I think he went to UAPB. But I just like Talladega. I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, all the reasons I really like Talladega is, like, it's not really necessarily about the band, but they be making stuff exciting. I'd be like, dang, look at Talladega. And I ain't necessarily tripping about how they sound or anything, but, like, when the director did the video, and it seemed like since Talladega's been on the map, it's always some huge commentary along with them. And it makes it kind of exciting. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's interesting is I've been thinking about this, and I feel like Talladega, they first came on the scene when they snuck up on Southern during that Mardi Gras parade and snuck up on them and did their thing. But they haven't really been that strong since. Like, I'm trying to think of another time when I've seen Talladega, and I'm just like, oh, man, they bring in the heat. And I can't really place anything. I mean, yeah, they were playing that happy. I didn't like that arrangement too much. But, I mean, that was several years ago. Was that 5 years ago? It may have been between 3 and 5 years ago.
Like about 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, but, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, I know that I can name memorable performances off of the other three bands and not Talladega, other than when people first started becoming aware of them when they were at the Mardi Gras parade.
Yeah, I actually think, that's actually a really good point, Christy. The other thing I think about them is, they went to the inauguration. And everyone.
Yeah, that too. I wasn't going to mention that. But since you brought it up, the fact that, they're known for playing at Donald Trump's inauguration. I mean, I guess that's what the outside fan world knows them as. Yeah, that's not doing too much for me. So,
yeah,
teach his own.
I wish that they had a little bit more of that flair and that performance. Like, I watched the videos from the inauguration of them playing, and I swear, man, it felt like they were really, really nervous. Like, they knew everybody.
No, they was trash. Let's just put it like they was trash.
But it wasn't the same, like, fury, like, just like the director, like, calling out Southern and Jackson State. Like, I didn't feel that in their performance. I didn't feel that fire, you know what I'm saying? I felt like the politics kind of got to them a little bit.
Well, it's more drama around it's more drama around their anticipation of them performing than the actual performance.
I think the real problem with Dega is it takes time to build a legacy of. It just takes time to build a program and legacy. My dad has a saying: anything that swells overnight is infected. I'm just gonna say that. And it takes time. The stronger program, they have a history. So if we're going to use Southern as the example, which they have a long history, a long tradition. And so it takes time to build that stable program, the level of musicians that you want, all the things. If you're trying to do it overnight, it's like a baby trying to run before they can even crawl. They're gonna fall. They're gonna bump their head. They're gonna do everything. And we're seeing a lot of that. They're trying to run. They're trying to jump in the game real quick, jump out the box, and they need to go sit down and crawl. They need to go back to the basics. They need to go back to tone development, which is, that's a whole other thing. They need to go back to some of the basics. So Rashad talked about, sustaining, releasing tones, all those things. Absolutely. But the fact that we have to talk about that with collegiate band is like my skin is crawling even talking about the fact that bands, that they can't play in tune. Collegiate bands aren't able to play in tune. They are not. We're talking about attacks and releases and sustaining tones for collegiate bands. That's a middle school band concept. That's what we talk about at middle school festivals, about attacks, releases, and sustaining. So by the time you get to collegiate, the conversation should be totally different. So we're having an elementary conversation about something we should be at a different level. And I think that's my problem with these type of things. Like marching band should be exciting, should be fun, should be wonderful, but we have to raise the standard as HBCUs. If we want respect in the field, we got to take it to another level, and we're not doing that with events called Crankfest. It's not happening.
It all comes back to Crankfest.
I think it's interesting how our memories, how quickly we forget the whole Talladega inauguration thing. And I think I even may have said it myself that they may have a hard time performing at certain events when the fall comes because people might turn their backs on them. But apparently, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I personally don't think they're going to have any problem performing anywhere because I think that was something that people were upset about at that time, and that was January, and now it's October, and nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, and that's a shame. That's a shame. As a people, we can't have limited memories, which is often why our efforts aren't successful as a people, which takes us to a whole nother conversation. We have limited memories. We'll take a knee for the first couple months, and it's gonna die away, and everybody's gonna stand again, or whatever it is. We can't have limited memories. So everybody's like, we're gonna blackball Talladega, da da da. No, you're not, because you're gonna forget, and you're gonna be excited because they're gonna come and they're gonna play loud. Or they're going to come to an event and, be ignorant and post Al-Qaeda videos. So you're excited again. So we can't have limited memories about things like that. That's first and foremost. We really can't.
I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I think that's part of their brand. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I know we'll be able to have some folks call in and say something, but I think that they're doing it on purpose. I think that, whatever floats the boat or gets anything exciting or is crankage or whatever it is, that's what they do. And it gets exciting. I get excited. You know what I'm saying? I like Dega. I would love to know if, how their recruiting has been. Like, if the trend is, if they're growing. Because we are talking about young people. Like, this panel here is kind of old. You know what I'm saying? So maybe it's some young folks that feel differently than we do. What you think, Christy?
I'm not old. I'm not old.
I'm sorry.
I'm not old.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, teenagers who don't know any better kind of gravitate towards that. I mean, they have to be taught by a decent band director, what's quality and what's not. But I do think your average 16-year-old is probably going to be attracted to that. That one that does not have that musical education.
Go ahead and wrap up. Do y'all have any closing thoughts in the podcast?
I do.
Yeah.
Something came up tonight that I find interesting that I would like us to explore in the podcast in the future. I didn't come to a band program where we discuss other bands on the podium. We prepared for every performance like it was a performance. You do your best. It wasn't about the other band. So when I hear about band directors talking about, hey, Grambling, we're talking about Grambling, and directors talking about other ensembles, I'm like, what? That's a foreign concept to me. And so I just find it interesting. When I say I find it really interesting, I really find it interesting. That's that intrinsic versus extrinsic, whatever motivation. They have to be intrinsic. It can't be about the other band. At least that's the way we were taught. But that's, I think, a conversation I would like to have.
Well, I know for us at Jackson State, I know that's basically what they were preaching, is that we need to be good every week, no matter where we are.
Absolutely.
And it was hard on Southern Week, Because it's like, oh, it's Southern Week. Because then it was like, oh, be
I
scared.
mean, it's a rival. It's a
Right.
rival.
So we was like, be scared. But then I remember at Smith, it was all about every other band. We were smaller. You know what I'm saying? So we needed that motivation. And I have to say, the week we played South Carolina State, and they took an L and at their own stadium. Check it out, 96. Smith took out South Carolina State. We had the best week of practice of our lives. Like, we were like, oh, my God, this is like the Super Bowl of our life. This is like the professional, like. So that for us, I could see maybe for a smaller program, but we definitely needed that motivation. Because, I mean, we were about to get, like, we was like, oh, my God, we're about to get clobbered. And that's what they thought. So they totally slept on us. But, yeah, they just totally think Johnson C. Smith, that's basically
okay, see, this is how we get off on the tangent, Joe.
Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Okay.
Do they still have a band at Johnson C. Smith? They still have a band there?
Yeah, they're very small. They're like a dozen.
Pray for them.
I haven't seen them in a while. That's why I'm asking.
Just pray for them. That's all you can
Yeah, I saw a clip of them earlier. I saw a clip of them earlier this season.
So at Hampton, so we didn't do that at Hampton. Mr. Smart didn't do that. My only experience, Bridget, with that comes from just knowing about having a history. I mean, with A&T for my years, being in North Carolina and knowing a lot of people in the band, and actually, they would always start band a lot earlier than we did. Like they would start like in July versus we didn't start till August at Hampton. And so we actually seeing Dr. Hodge himself do this. To me, I think Dr. Hodge's degree, his doctorate was in psychology, and I just thought it was just awesome how he was able to motivate his band the way he did, game after game. One thing about it is that one thing I realized about A&T for several years is that A&T was regularly competing against bands that had much larger scholarship budgets. You're looking at, Bethune-Cookman that blew up in the 90s from 100 and something to 300 people, and they had a huge scholarship budget. At Hampton, we had a pretty decent scholarship budget. And yet, in A&T, for whatever reason, and I think that's still to this day, the school has just never really given the band the money that they needed to recruit, the best musicians that they could. And so what Dr. Hodge was able to do, I think, was able to pull the best out of those students every day and made them a competitive band regardless of the money. And I think a lot of that was a lot of the psychology that he used on the band. I saw that myself going into the band. I mean, Dr. Hodge and I were cool, and yet I saw him use that on me. Like, hey, you see that guy over there? He's a spy from Hampton. Now, he knew I wasn't a spy from Hampton. He knew that. But he told the whole band that to get them riled up. And I just thought it was really cool how he's able to do that in order to get the best out of his band.
That's what's up.
Well, ditto. Since you spoke so much on my program.
Well, you thought I was going to say something bad, didn't you? You can't. You was about to say, hold up. Let me just hold up, Rashad, before you get.
No. But I was like, you sure got a lot to say for a program you didn't march in.
I've always tried to give props to you.
I'm from Hampton, Virginia. That's my hometown. You don't see me talking all that about Hampton's band. I'm just saying.
Well, we never came to Hampton's band room that I knew of. That's while I was there.
That you knew of. I'm also older than you, so
maybe you met that drum major that can't read music. We need to find out who that is. I'm like, my mouth is dropping over here. Like,
yeah, I think he was flirting with Bridget. He was trying to be cute. That's what that was. He's like, I don't even know I can read music.
I don't know what he was doing. And let me tell you, and that's not a slight to Mr. Smart, because he's, when I say one class act, he was a class act band director. So that's not a slight to him. This young man could have been a Devin Miles, for all we know. He could have been a drumline kind of a story. So we don't know the story behind that. So I don't want it to be taken as a slight to Mr. Smart, because Mr. Smart, when I say was a class act, really was a class act.
Yeah, he was. He was that dude. Rest in peace. Shout out to Mr. Smart.
Yeah, shout out to
rest in peace.
And shout out to Lil Barney. The Smart the Second, and Double Time Entertainment. Mm-hmm. They said that they were also going to sign on this year for another sponsorship. So shout out to him. All right, y'all. So that was actually the bomb. So Christy, I'll let you final words to end this podcast.
Contrary to what Bridget may think, I don't think that crank is a 4-letter word. And so I'm just going to leave with that before Bridget goes off on me again.
That's because you went to A&T.
Oh, you just look. Okay, no, I'm not gonna get into Morgan. Who's checking for Morgan? Not a one. Ain't nobody checking for Morgan.
I'm going to tell you now. Put a Morgan musician against the A&T musician any day.
Any day.
Any day.
Y'all still playing one song in the dance routine?
Oh, Chrissy, that was in the 90s, girl. Girl, bye. Chrissy, that was in the 90s. We had a scholarship budget or travel budget in Kingston where they would know that we play more than one song in the dance.
Okay, so you talking scholarship smack? Now you know.
Don't come for me. Don't come for me, honey.
With Morgan. When has Morgan ever entered the conversation in the last 30 years?
Quite often, Chrissy, and we know that, but we also know the band that's considered good than bands don't get into the conversation. That's a whole nother podcast. No matter what they do, they can come out on the field butt naked. It wouldn't even matter because they're from the North. So let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have a director from the South. If you don't have a director from Southern, Jackson State, down that area, then you can hang it up. So that's a whole nother conversation. But we'll later.
Y'all being in head of state back in the day. Shout out to that for real.
Christy, girl, let's end the podcast. Christy's playing. You playing. You got games. You playing.
So Bridget, it's on you now, Bridget. How you wanna any final thoughts for the podcast, Bridget?
Y'all have a blessed night. That's my final thoughts for the podcast. Go crank tonight. Go in your house and crank tonight. How about that?
Whatever, man.
Rashad, what any closing thoughts on the podcast?
Okay, on that last topic, I think I would be in agreement with Christy. We definitely didn't think it happened. That's not what we did. We tried our best in order to produce the prettiest sound that we could and try to produce a lot of it. Cranking was not something that we did. We never snatched our instrument. That's not the school of thought that I came from. But I like Christy, I don't think that crank is a 4-letter word. But I think that there are ways to produce. I think I'm in the middle. I think there's ways to produce great, beautiful sound and still be really, really loud and really aggressive. And so I think that's a conversation.
That's what I like. But see, that's what I was trying to say.
Cranking can be good, and just because it's not in the dictionary doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because jazz wasn't in the dictionary either when it first came out. And one other thing, I'd just like to say that, my company, Block Band, we've been working really hard in order to serve the show style band community. We have just hit 1,000 arrangements this year.
Yay, good job.
Thank you. We're very, very excited about that. We've been around. We actually sold our 1,000th arrangement on the day that we were 6.5 years old. So that was on September the 13th. So we're just very excited about that, and we're looking forward to getting to 2,000 and reaching hundreds of more customers and hoping many more bands.
That's outstanding, Rashad. Congratulations on that. Love Block Band music and love all that they do, and definitely a supporter of the this network. As far as my closing thoughts, I guess I'm the same way. I think I like the word because it brings excitement, and it's like for the young folks, and we, like you say, can make some money off of it. Like we could say, hey, this is at least one of our things we can put some financial funds together for. But I guess just speaking from my program at Jackson State University, I think that we can actually do both. We play music, we do orchestra, we crank, we facilitate. We entertain. I just think we are just the full gamut of a program. So if you're listening, you should probably send your kids to Jackson State University, because you can crank, and then at the same time, you can be in the symphonic band in the spring semester. But it's always love, because we always love all our programs, because without them, we wouldn't be here off doing great things in the world. We'll do our best to cover as many bands each week, and definitely have the phone lines open for folks to come in and, say something as far as like our commentary is concerned. But I really appreciate the three of you. Again, always looking out, being way out there late on the East Coast, up doing this stuff so we can have some entertainment out here out west. So shout out to the three of you, and I appreciate everything y'all do. And
maybe, just maybe, you can come out to a Honda.
Yes, I am planning to go to the Honda this year. I am planning to go. So I was already putting stuff. I was gonna see y'all at Queen City. I was just gonna, but Chrissy, look. I was like, Chrissy, look. Like, that's what I was gonna do at the Queen City. But I'm definitely trying to get down there this year. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll help send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can build your business.
Hey, this your girl Casey Nesbitt, 2000 graduate of Jackson State University, class of 1996 of the Sonic Boom of the South, 2002 graduate of North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University, Aggie Boy, also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, fall 1997 Delta Phi Chapter, and you're listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Diamond Frazier. I'm a member of the Tennessee State University Marching Band. I'm a part of the clarinet section. And I also was a 2016 scholarship recipient from the Marching Podcast. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
Hello, this is Emmanuel Powell, one of the 2015 Marching Podcast Scholarship recipients and 2016 Jackson State University Saxophone Section Leader. And you are now listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
We've come to the end of our podcast. Check out the website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Thanks to you for listening, and remember, the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. See you next time.